Welcome to another episode of Mike's Big Martial Knife Exploration Journey. And yes, we are getting into sizable knives again today after we took a bit of a turn for a while into somewhat smaller, lighter Spanish-made blades. But speaking of Spanish-made, so I'm going back about 5 reviews if I'm counting right. We took a look at the Cudeman model 106M with the micarta scales. Very impressed with this knife. It has become one of my favorites and gone a long way to overcoming my lifelong trepidation regarding hollow ground blades. It is very sharp, very slicey, and proven itself to be very durable. Plus, feels great in the hand, yeah. Made me think about getting, yes, another Cudeman. So, spoiler alert from the title, today we're going to be taking a look at the Cudeman model 294C Stag handle Bowie. And if I had to give it a one-word review, wow. Out of the box sharpness. Shaving sharp, I'm going to say straight razor sharp. Now steel on this one, like the other Spanish knives we've taken a look at, is a German Mova, but this one is specified as ACX 380. I'm not terribly familiar with it, but like the other knives my test files are saying, it's between 55 and 60 HRC. Very, very keen hollow ground blade, not a lot of steel behind that edge. We'll see how it holds up. 5 millimeters thick at the spine, but against paper, it's like the paper's not even there. Cardboard. Like warm butter. Again, as I said, wow. As for the sheath, I had some issues with the other Cudeman sheath, and some of them repeat here. But it is a nice thick leather sheath with a lot of accent detail. Comes with the elephant logo stamped in, and in this case you got the funky fringe. And here's where I admit that back in the 1960s, yes, I did own a leather jacket with fringe. You guys know I'm a really old guy, right? Okay, anyway. Couple of weird choices though. Now it does have diagonal thumb brake strap on the spine side of the blade. That is awesome. But they kind of went for a dangler and then kind of didn't. A bigger loop would make sense because this one doesn't have much give. But then if you look at the loop, it's weird. I'm not sure how it's supposed to go. I mean, here it's sort of catching on itself with these rivets. There's no clearance for it to really move freely. And then if I flip it around so it does, well then I'm wearing it so the belt is going to be into the rivets, and is that the right way or not? Another concern that's come up with this part of it though is just the flex here has started causing the leather to crack. It's not a good sign, but one of my other big frustrations is the fit of the sheath to the blade is really, really, really tight. And that's actually sort of exacerbated by a couple of things. One, the scalloping on the back of the blade, which we'll talk about. But I mentioned this in other videos where I have a knife with a big belly that is really sharp and isn't coming in and out of its sheath very smoothly, increases the risk that I'm going to cut up the sheath. And yeah, so I've been forcing some break-in. I've got it reasonably smooth at this point with a couple of hiccups. We'll talk about that more in carry and handling. But yeah, it's not a bad sheath, but it definitely has some odd choices. Specs, fit finish, build quality, in the country of wow. First of all, what did I pay for this thing? About $140 is what I got this for at Chicago Knife Works. Put the link in the description below. So it cost me about $40 more than the other Cudeman. Speaking of comparisons to the other Cudeman, it is about half an inch shorter, measuring the blade at 9¼ inches, 23½ centimeters. It is a bit wider in the belly though, 2⅛ inch, 5½ centimeters, and yeah, it's the same 5 millimeters thick. Now, grip. Full length of the grip is 5¼ inches. 13½ centimeters gives it an overall length of 14¾ inches, so 37½ centimeters. But okay, Stag grip, definitely real Stag. We'll talk about construction rat tail in a second here, but okay. It is oval, but it's more roundish than, shall we say, oval. In other words, front to back, that grip is 1½ inches wide, but it's 1¼ inches thick. So yeah, very, very, very hand-filling and, well, interesting natural shapes. So yeah, I'm definitely feeling some interesting biases as I'm shifting it right hand to left hand, because yeah, it's shaping this Stag. Well, it's not perfectly machined fit. It's got some odd lopsidedness to it, but okay, there's some appeal to that. But back to the wow weight. It's ½ ounce heavier than the other Cudeman, 19½ ounces, 553 grams. This is a solid feeling knife with a point of balance is ½ inch into the blade. All right, build quality. Has a brush finish. You've got the Cudeman logo. I'm not sure about like this elephant or not. It looks like kind of a sloppy decal on there. Not sure if I'm going to keep that or try to just buff it out. But for now, it's going to stay. Again, very clean, very, very keen, hollow grind, super sharp. We'll see how it holds up to my impact and durability test. Nice swedge on the clip point, not sharp, but could be sharpenable. I certainly did it on the other Cudeman, probably going to put it on this. Let's talk about shaping the blade though. Okay, one of the things that really attracted me to the knife visually is the scalloping they did on the spine. Now that does cause a bit of serration snagging in drawing and resheathing, but I think it's kind of cool and might inspire me to do something like this to some of my other knives while I'm tinkering. Now, gap in the guard is pretty small, but yeah, you can definitely see it's a rat tail, and it's probably only a little over ½ inch wide. Now, in the construction, you can see kind of a peen mark or something at the bottom. You can see that the tang, I think this indicates that it's coming through that metal butt cap. How well is this going to hold together? I have no idea, but we've reviewed some other Spanish-made knives that had rat tail tangs, and they held up surprisingly well. We'll see if this does as well, both blade and, well, and handle construction. But overall, yeah, this is a massive but gorgeous blade. We'll talk about how it feels in handling. But first, yes, I have not run my impact and durability tests. Let's see how it does. So how'd it do? I'm going to say wow again, but okay. Got to qualify that wow. What am I talking about? All right, the first test, stabbing and thrusting into my pel, stab him. Multiple layers of thick cardboard backed up by a couple of inches of compressed brown paper bag paper, backed up by wood. I use 4 grips for the test. Forward grip with the blade facing away from me and towards me, which changes the tip geometry, the angle of attack of that tip, and reverse grip, blade facing away from me, blade facing towards me. Penetration, great. Made some really big, deep holes in my pel with not a lot of effort. I did get a little bit of slippage on this grip, and we're definitely going to talk about that more, but no really uncomfortable collisions with that guard, and I haven't made any changes to it. So did really well in that test. Also cut some cardboard up, so yeah, it is a very good cardboard slicer, but I'm going to talk about the weight and the grip when it comes to utility tasks here. Because the next test going out, this is the one I was concerned with, especially for an edge this keen, the bamboo test. Hacking and slashing into a piece of hard bamboo, sometimes at some extreme angles. I'm trying to see if I can intentionally induce chip or roll in a fragile edge, and I went a little bit harder on it with this knife because I really wanted to be sure, and this knife had enough mass that it went really hard on the bamboo. It's got some authority behind it. And it came away with absolutely no damage whatsoever. I expected at least a little bit of glinting, and there's nothing. Really impressive. It's just like the other Cudeman. But then on to carving, shaving on some wood. And yeah, it's really sharp, really keen, but really awkward. It's big, it's heavy, and that grip. All right. So I've described my hands as being medium width, but I have really stubby short fingers. So when I wrap my fingers around it, yeah, that's hard to hang on to. It feels like I'm hanging on to a sizable branch. And because it's not very uniform ergonomic, that makes it even harder to, well, get a good grip on, to use, maintain my edge angle. It was kind of a struggle to use it as a tool. Now, when I went to chopping with it, oh boy, did this bite into wood and got stuck a couple of times. It bit deep and felt good doing that. No uncomfortable kickback into me. Again, these tests are not designed to be extended hard bushcraft tests, but just enough to give me a sense of how the edge and the build will hold together under various kinds of impact and how it will translate that impact back into me. And sturdiness and sharpness, it performed wonderfully. Comfort, it's not uncomfortable, but it's, I'm going to have to say, compared to a lot of my other sizable knives, this is awkward for me at least to hang on to. Now, if you've got much bigger hands than I do, you're probably not going to notice it, but I definitely did, and it certainly made me think twice about getting other knives with Stag grips. So let's go ahead and talk about carry and handling. All right, down to the unflattering waistline view so we can talk about carry. Now, this sort of dangler, non-dangler system is actually working pretty well. It is moving enough with me that I'm not getting tangled snags getting out of my way when I sit down, but it's not flopping around loose, which is also good because there's no securing point at the base of the sheath for a lanyard to tie it to my thigh. So it's kind of working that way, also allowing this longer blade to ride lower on my hip to give me more room for a draw stroke. So that's good. Also, find the thumb brake strap fairly easily, consistently, but all right. So I am breaking the sheath in. It is still, though, pretty tight, not nearly as tight as it used to be. But then combine that with that scalloping on the spine, which kind of acts almost like serrations to a certain degree, and then that really, really sharp, big belly. If I don't get a clean draw, I get snag, and that snag can also potentially cut this sheath to pieces. And that's on drawing and resheathing. Now, if I'm really clean about it, I can get a conventional draw pretty smoothly without over-torquing my shoulders. So that's actually pretty good. But, all right, I can actually also get a pretty clean reinsertion that way. Reverse grip. All right, have to make sure I make it clean or that sheath is going to try to come with me and snag. So yeah, if I get it clean, now see, it wants to grab still. So break in. This is my major problem with it. Finding that right draw angle that does not create that snag in the draw it's a challenge with this blade. All right, what about canting my hand around and trying to go cavalry style? Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So I think with a bit more break-in, I'll have less issues with it. But yeah, I don't know. Kind of mixed on my feelings about the sheath and the carry system. A lot of it's good, but a couple of things about it that scare me. All right, Marshall handling. Oh my. All right, just holding it. I can't help but have a Crocodile Dundee moment. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Not going to say the thing, but. All right, I did make a couple of adjustments to the shape of the grip without removing too much of the horn, specifically right up here at the top, to make those shapes just a little bit more even. Maybe it's just my own OCD. That's also allowing me to get a better grip at the top, and we'll talk about that in a second for handling. But just overall impressions of it, it's a big, hefty beast that feels really chunky. I mean, this grip is girthier than a lot of my sword grips are, so, you know, take that into consideration. I think definitely would feel better if I had bigger hands. And just that, well, the feel and the security of the grip, I'm going to have to say the 106M, I like it a whole lot more. Just feels great, moves great, very useful knife. But one thing I am going to say about this blade, it is somehow even scarier in terms of its sharpness and cutting capacity, if that's even possible. Yeah, and speaking of sharpness and cutting capacity, yes, I did add a sharpened back edge to it, and it turned out actually pretty nice and about hatchet-like in terms of choppy and slicey, which is making the blade even more wicked. But yeah, okay. But moving it around really feels like it favors a forward grip to me. We'll talk about reverse grip here in a second. But choking up in a good firm hammer grip, getting a good hold of it, my hand high on it. Yeah, a lot of authority in the chop and the slash. Comes around very nicely with the tip for the stab. There is enough space here to safely get my index finger up over the front edge without cutting myself, which is also good for close-in work. I was having to use it that way to do a lot of the close slicing just to get a better grip on it. I can also get my thumb up on the shelf of the guard for security and flipping it around North American Bowie style. It does just kind of fit into the curves of my hands. Get my thumb up there, get my index finger in the hook of the rear guard, in the orientation, blade facing me. Yeah, very good tip-on geometry as I shift to more of a handshake grip. Tips coming straighter in. I now have a good hooking back edge. So there's that. Flipping it back edge away from me. All right. Rocking down, kind of trying to make some sort of palm swell action out of it down here to get some snap cutting. I can make it happen. I just feel like it's so chunky and dense that I almost feel like it might rip itself out of my hand, but not quite. Yeah, I'm definitely feeling me working that grip to keep control of the blade. But when it hits, when it cuts, it cuts, oh boy. Again, this crosses the line into short sword. Reverse grip. All right, first of all, that is way too chunky and heavy for me to pull off my finger twirl with, which again I don't recommend, is not very secure anyway. But all right, pinch flipping. again, this is where it gets to feeling like a tree branch again. And I just, oh, that doesn't feel good at all. I feel like I'm going to drop this and put it through the floor or my foot. None of those would be good, but getting it into the reverse grip, I feel like I have something really big and massive. I can make it work. If I had bigger hands, again, it's probably work better. But yeah, it's got so much belly for slashing and tip for that kind of hooking stab, flipping the edge towards me. Yeah, I got that serious back cut. I still have some forward slashing capacity, and the tip's on nice and straight for those kind of stabs that kind of cut as they go in and don't hook like they would if the edge was facing away from me. Kind of gets stuck in the target a little bit. But yeah, I am planning on doing a video comparing the different thrust angles of the different grips and what they can do. But yeah, this one, I don't really like it in reverse grip is what I'm trying to say. It just feels kind of big, chunky, and awkward. Can be used. I feel like it would be good in the reverse grip if it was being used as a companion. There are certain techniques, for instance, with Bowie and tomahawk, where you do hold the Bowie knife in the reverse position as that secondary weapon. And I feel like that would work okay, because if I'm really just gripping onto this thing for dear life in that kind of a fight, it almost makes sense, but my other knives feel better doing that. Whereas otherwise, yeah. Certainly has enough blade authority and size for parrying and hitting with the back of it and hitting with the flat of it. So I've got all those options from Eskrima Criolla, North American Bowie. Yeah, so we'll be talking about those in future videos. So yeah, it's a heavy blade, massive blade, great cutting capacity, great thrusting and stabbing, but the grip is it's just not made for me, I guess is what I'm saying. All right. I don't feel like I wasted my money, though. I feel like, yeah, they should have at least one knife like this in the collection for comparison, and also, yeah, for appearance. It is a very attractive, awesome-looking knife. Now, am I going to add scallops like this to any of my other knives? Having this one in hand, I'm going to actually say no because of that weird serration action in the kind of snags in drawing and resheathing. That is one thing that, practically speaking, I'm not digging about the fancy back here. So that's something to consider. Otherwise, if you have any questions about this knife, or you want to talk about other Cudeman or other Spanish-made blades, yes, this is another one of those experiences that makes me want to look at more Spanish-made knives. I never know what I'm going to get, but they've all been awesome in their way. And different from, well, some of the things we looked at earlier on in the journey, definitely. I mean, a blade that can make me love hollow grinds again, that's saying something. But otherwise, as always, thank you all so much for watching, following my journey, putting up with my madness, subscribing to the channel, liking the videos, adding to our conversation, sending me those recommendations. Yes, please, and thank you. And I hope to see you back for, well, whatever the next episode is.